Let's talk about this next story, and you're going to have a strong opinion about it one way or another. I promise you that. In New York, the fat acceptance, also fat pride is referenced, movement is scoring a major victory. The city council passing a bill banning discrimination based on weight and height in hiring, housing, and public accommodations. It now heads to Mayor Eric Adams' desk for his signature. And Niall Stanage from The Hill is with me right now. Niall, for those who need to get caught up, you know, it's so funny. I'm on Instagram quite a lot. I know that you like the TikTok, but some of these videos sometimes just come into my feed that I didn't necessarily ascribe to, and it's typically of people talking about a new trend or new movement, the fat movement being one of them. But can you explain what this new bill would do for that movement?
Yeah, what it would do very simply is add weight and height to the list of protected categories. So what that means in normal terms is if you are working and you feel that you were paid poorly because of your weight, or if you were denied promotion, or if you were bullied, you could take a case on that basis in the same way that people have long been able to take those kind of cases on the basis of age or race or gender. That's what it would do.
And this is similar to other discrimination, like for natural hair, the Crown Act recently passed within the past few years. We also have seen, obviously, different groups, LGBTQ+ and ethnic groups, want the same types of rights. But there are opponents to this particular fat acceptance movement. In fact, I've seen videos of people who are making fun because of the argument to say, if I'm fat, I'm going to accept that and you should too. And it's some people are making it laughable.
Yeah, it is, I think, a difficult issue because unlike most of the categories that we can talk about as traditional discrimination, I mean, obviously one's weight is not an immutable characteristic in the way that race or gender or age is. And we do have also opponents from the employment side worrying that this will end up in a situation where people get caught up in never-ending court cases, essentially, trying to adjudicate these matters of what exactly comprises discrimination on the basis of weight and what doesn't. Can I use one quick example, Adrienne?
You've got plenty of time, yeah.
Okay, so there was a cable installer in Michigan, and the company said that a man who was overweight had to lose 100 pounds because he couldn't safely use the ladder. His lawyer claimed that was discrimination. Now, is it discrimination? It's clearly debatable. It's very clearly not, you know, Rosa Parks being told to use the back of the bus. So the danger is that these kinds of cases drag on, and the main winners, frankly, are the lawyers who take the cases.
Well, and you think about the conversations we've had about weight and the military. A big part of their recruitment issue is that they've said nationwide, young people who are eligible to serve our country have to be within a certain health requirement, healthy weight. And again, the fat acceptance movement would actually probably take umbrage at healthy weight being a term that we need to adjust or look at. But you have to be able to do things physically that maybe somebody who's overweight or over a certain weight can't do.
Yes, absolutely. And to be fair, the New York bill does carve out an exemption for jobs where it is essential to the functioning of the job to be under a certain weight. Now, again, the problem is that sounds fine in theory, but how does that work whenever lawyers and others have a vested interest in being able to take these cases where you can quibble over all of the definitions? I think that's the point. And there is, of course, the additional point, Adrienne, that there is abundant evidence, of course, that being overweight or obese creates all sorts of health problems. So, you know, that's part of the picture too.
Well, and even in light of the fact that we see more plus-size models, beautiful men and women who are able to have a career now, where before they wouldn't, because you had to be within a size like 0 or 2. I would not qualify to have a modeling career at one time in our history. But you look at women who trailblazed like M, back in, I want to say, the 90s, early 2000s, and then Ashley Graham. Gorgeous people, very successful. At the same time, you can be skinny fat and have a very small or petite physique on the outside, but on the inside have some issues. And so that's probably what people in the fat movement are saying. I'm healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And also to expand the traditional definitions of beauty, which I'm all for. I think that is good, that people can see beauty outside of what was the traditional 1950s definition of that term for women or for men. I think that is a very honourable objective. I think what we're getting into now is the more debatable question of whether there should be compensation given to people who are whose employers take a particular view of whether their weight or height interferes with their capacity to do the job.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.